Story time. So in 2018, I took a job at an American international school here in Shenzhen, in Nanshan district in Sheko. And at this school, I was prepared to prepare lessons that were more project-based than lecture-based. It was, in theory, it's a good idea, but really what it ended up being was just a school that students who couldn't make it at other schools just kind of landed here. And by couldn't make it at other schools, what I really mean is they're just kind of lazy, rich, entitled kids who couldn't be bothered to lift a finger. So I ended up kind of just managing this classroom full of kids that I couldn't get to stop playing Uno long enough to do the simplest Mickey Mouse type lessons that I had planned for them to do. Anyway, in the apartment where I lived with my wife and kid, there's a student who goes to a traditional, like, public Chinese high school, and he had an argument, I guess, with his mother over his grades. And traditional Chinese high school kids, they take their studies very seriously. If they fuck up, then I mean that's kind of the rest of their future on the line there. A lot of suicides happen that way, and so indeed this kid did end up jumping like from the 19th floor of our building and killed himself right there on the floor. Shortly after his mother followed him down, and so we had kind of a double suicide in one day just because of this kid and his taxing schedule. This kid who was putting everything he had into it, and just still wasn't enough. So the next day, I went back to school where these rich entitled kids were, and I just couldn't stand it. I couldn't stand their attitudes anymore, and I walked out, which is a really dangerous and irresponsible thing to do when you're on a work permit in China, because then you technically have no reason to stay and you can be deported that way. Well, I got lucky because our HR department decided that, at least one of the women in the HR decided that she was going to keep my residence permit open while I found a new job. So I got to stay here with my wife and kid while I was looking for a new job. So that's a luxury that a lot of people don't have when they lose or quit their jobs here. So I looked and ended up taking some pretty shit jobs. I ended up working as a kind of just a white muppet in a kindergarten, and the kindergarten didn't process my work permit correctly, so I was working illegally and didn't know it until one day the principal came to me and said, hey, you need to go hide on the roof because immigration's here and they're going to deport you. So I went and hid on the roof. They didn't find me. I left that school and never came back, still with an open residence permit and a work permit that had never been properly transferred to another school. I was fortunate enough then to find a job teaching AP Calculus, which is my actual area of certification is in mathematics, high school mathematics. So I ended up landing at the second best high school in Shenzhen, teaching in their international department, teaching AP Calculus. Problem was, it is on the far side, the far east side of the city, separated from basically everything else. So my wife and kids still lived on the far west side of the city, in Sheko district, or Nanshan district, in the Sheko area. So I had to take an apartment here in Luohu district, like the oldest district in Shenzhen, and in order to keep my costs down, I ended up finding the cheapest place I can possibly rent in this little villagey area called Xinxiu. So, I mean, it's adorable, but it's kind of a shithole. But to be honest, the people in this area have been, I mean, they don't really understand me. I might be the only foreigner in this area, but they have never been nasty to me, so that's something to say about it. So anyway, this place is super cheap, and I've been living here for about a year and a half as I work at this job with these incredible students. Like, I've never had a job like this before, working with kids where my only job is to teach math. I don't play babysitter. I don't have to like play cheerleader for these kids. I mean, they chase it themselves. All I do is I teach my subject. So during the weekdays, I come back here to this little apartment, and on the weekends, I go back home to Sheko area to see my wife and kid. And it's been that way for about a year and a half. In order to continue surviving here, and in order to not get deported, I have to have this job. So for about a year and a half, I've missed my daughter growing up every day. She's about 2 years, 3 months at this point. So I see her once a week, and it feels like a year has passed each time. So I ended up signing a contract with a school that is closer to, it'll be in the same district as my wife and kid. We'll be able to live together again. And it starts in August, a couple months from now. Problem is, during the lockdown, no foreigners are allowed to enter China. And so here I am, still here. I never left. If I do leave, I won't be able to get back in, even though I am married to a citizen. This has had a pretty crushing effect on the economy of the international school business, because if there are no foreigners in the country or in the school, no parent wants to pay to have an international education if all the native speakers have to connect in remotely. Whew, I'm winded. So enrollment is down, which means a lot of people are getting laid off. A lot of salaries are getting cut. My salary got cut. So I'll be taking this job for 2/3 of what I thought I was taking it for. But I think it'll be worth it, because I get to live with my wife and kid again, and I'll get IB experience. I stay there long enough. And then my daughter will also be able to go to school there for free. Whew, I'm out of shape. I think it's a pretty good deal. I'll wait and see if it doesn't get better than the following year. See if I can find something else. This is where I've been living. Sort of a unit by unit rental. Somebody used to live in that room, somebody used to live in that room. I live in that room. My roommates have moved out, so I'm the only one here now. Here's our kitchen. Cooking supplies left by the other people. Single burner. It's a very old building. There are much nicer places in Shenzhen, but this is not one of them. There's a washing machine. Table nobody uses. Our very efficient refrigerator. Kind notes from the delivery guy. Begging for good ratings on the app. Here's the bathroom. You got a shower combined with the toilet and sink all in one. And then here's my little room. This is where I come home after work and I just lay there. Lay there and wait for better times. And so those better times will come. This is the last night I'm going to have to stay in this apartment. I'm gonna pack my stuff and head back to see my wife and kid, and then I never have to come back. This whole section of my life is over. I'm kind of gonna miss my students that I have. I've never had, like I said, I've never had students like this before. I'm gonna miss solitude a little bit, but at the same time, I do miss my kid every time I go home. I feel like I'm not really the dad I'm supposed to be, so at least now I'll get to participate more in that, and it'd be nice to see my family every day. So, goodbye, Xinxiu.